today that will be showcased here, and they come from very different sectors, from the social sector, the environmental sector. They just come from different sectors. So without much ado, let's move on to the first speaker. Is he here? Dr. Pulkesh Das, is he here? Because I can't see him as a panelist. Yes. Good morning, Dr. Das. Very warm welcome. So, yeah, you're first. And Dr. Das will talk to us about the use of geospatial technologies in this very wonderful project that they have done on landscape restoration opportunities. So it's a live atlas that's extremely interactive and uses geospatial technologies at the background, and also plays a very important role in achieving several of the SDGs. So Dr. Das, it's over to you. You have 15 minutes.
Sure. Thank you. Hi everyone, good morning. This is Pulkesh Das, working in the Sustainable Landscape Restoration team at WRI India. And welcome you all again in this event. And I'll be discussing about the restoration opportunity atlas we developed a few years back for entire India. This is like your high level map we have prepared using several your layers, how one can plan the landscape restoration in different parts of India, and how this enables the different government and non-government organizations planning the different type of interventions. And yeah, so this interventions or the landscape restoration basically talks about the tree-based restoration events. And so here you can see like these tree-based interventions can be placed in a for natural species regeneration or mixed species plantation or the agroforestry or trees on farm boundaries, and the evergreen agriculture practices. Like this evergreen agriculture practices is a like intensive farming system that integrates the trees into crops and livestock production system in the farm and the landscape scales. So what is the key challenges in the landscape restoration landscape restoration in India? So basically this includes the information. So we have large number of data available in different scales, different landscape that coming from the ground, the satellite, and the different sources. So how do we use the different data to develop a landscape restoration potential map that allows the interventions? So this is basically very important to collate the different data from multi-sources and combine a robust map. And so these are all linked with the India's international commitment as well as the national targets. So this includes like the Green India Mission, the Some Mission on Agroforestry, the National Bamboo Mission, the National Rural Livelihood Mission. So these are the missions you can see on the screen. Those can be achieved when someone implements this kind of activities on the ground. And so what are the different tree-based interventions are linked with the sustainable development goals? So what we can get benefit out from this your landscape restoration. So this can help in mitigating the climate change. It can provide the food and forest products, improve the water quality, the biodiversity. It can also create recreational opportunities, and also on the water side, it improves the water quality. It provides the sustainable timber, fiber, and food, creates jobs, improve health. So a large number of sustainable development goals can be achieved when someone implements the landscape restoration. So the main problem is how to plan where these restorations are possible, and like where we can do restoration, how we can implement the different interventions, who are the principal actors who are already implementing the different interventions, and what is the necessary enabling condition that requires to in the process. So with this basics aim, we have developed the India Restoration Atlas, which includes a number of data layers. This is the page where one can launch the atlas and see the restoration potential in different biogeographic regions in India. And this is the Atlas page. You can see this has been categorized into a number of different layers. So it talks about the landscape restoration opportunities, the potential for tree cover increase, the potential for above ground carbon sequestration, the past and ongoing initiatives, the risk factor, and the tenure and resource right. And initially, this map is categorized into three your categories, which talks about the forest protection, and then the wide scale restoration and the mosaic restoration. I'll be coming details into these categories. So we started with the high resolution India vegetation type map. This map is generated by Roy et al. So we started with this map, and then also we like employed the tree canopy cover density in different regions, and also we employed the protected area boundary. So we have applied a certain your exclusion principle based on this protected area boundary, and again we have taken layers like irrigation status, human footprint, human population to define our exclusion and inclusion principle. So this India vegetation type map we took, and then we reclassified, and from that reclassified map we have removed a number of ecologically important areas, as well as the classes like urban areas, water bodies, and like swamp forest. So on the left hand side, you can see the number of your exclusion principle we have used, which are not suitable or like ecologically or socially inappropriate for landscape restoration. So the remaining classes, what we have categorized into two sub your classes as forest and non-forest. Again, in forest, if we have a very dense forest, we have removed them from this analysis. If the forest density is like your more than 40% in mangroves, we have classified them as a protected area or areas for protection. If the canopy density or tree canopy density in forest areas is below 40%, then one can apply the wide scale restoration. And if the canopy density is less than 40%, with a population density is less than 400 per square kilometer, mostly this includes the agricultural land or commons land, those we have classified as a mosaic restoration. So these are the three broad categories. One can segregate the entire your areas potential for restoration or the different your interventions. So if you see, this is the like your restoration opportunity map for entire India in the Gangetic Plain or the flat plain of Brahmaputra or the upper Western Himalaya. So lot many regions have been removed. Those are basically excluded depending on the different criteria, like your barren land in Western Himalaya. The Gangetic Plain are like highly populated, densely populated areas, and the the agricultural lands which are like closely associated with this highly dense populated areas, those have been removed. So you can see like the exclusion principle have removed the socially and ecologically important areas from this restoration. So excluding them, about 140 million hectares in India have a potential for landscape restoration, which includes 18 million hectares for forest protection and wide-scale restoration in 34 million hectare, and mosaic restoration, which is like the croplands and other this kind of commons lands, have a potential of 87 million hectare is potential under this category. So how do and then at the next level we have tried to estimate what will be the maximum tree cover one can increase in a particular your area. That we have derived using the vegetation type map, the biogeographic zones map, and the tree canopy cover density data from the Landsat data. And so we have taken the maximum tree canopy density in the biogeographic regions, and that we have taken as a baseline, and from that we have estimated the potential for your tree cover increase. So this is the potential area for tree cover increase in India. You can see a large area is showing high potential for tree cover increase in and around the cultivated lands and the degraded lands, basically. Similarly, we have also tried to estimate the potential for above ground biomass. So if we plant trees or improve the tree cover, how this can improve the carbon sequestration potential in India. So this will help in achieving the NDCs or zero carbon emission targets. So here we have taken the India vegetation type map and the FSI, the forest density classes and the type of forest, and there your above ground biomass equations. So taking these three density classes as very dense, moderately dense, and open forest, we tried to develop regression models how the carbon can be like sequestered in different forest types across India. And this is a carbon sequestration potential map, and it shows that about 3 to 4.3 billion tons above ground carbon can be sequestered by 2040 if we do proper interventions. And these are the ongoing forest interventions taking place at different your areas. These are the key actors who are doing the implementations, and what are the threatening factor in different landscape. So all these data layers are available in the India Restoration Atlas. One can also check the state level statistics for different your data. So I'll skip these slides. Basically, I'll talk about this your city restoration part where we are currently doing some ground-based interventions. So once we have this your broad level restoration potential map, we can plan further where we can focus for further landscape restoration. So this Madhya Pradesh state has shown a high potential for wide scale and mosaic restoration, and it is the among top 3 states which showing the high potential for mosaic restoration. So here we have tried to develop a second level of interventions potential map, where you can see on the right hand side, this map shows the different types of interventions one can apply in this landscape. So to do this, we have adapted the restoration opportunities assessment methodology. So this includes the different local government agencies, local people, and different stakeholders. And we had this assessment in the Siri district and came up with the different suitable interventions. So this solves various your key issues where like the small and marginal farmers with limited socioeconomic opportunities, how they can be benefited, and then how these people are dependent on the forest products, and how the restoration how this restoration can help in achieving the land degradation and soil erosion, or the how this can also mitigate the tree cover losses. So various key issues this can solve. And on the right hand side, you can see this is the GIS data analysis mapathon event we conducted, and on the left hand side, this is the collector tool we used, and on the right hand side, you can see the different data collected in this landscape. And from all this analysis, we have came up with the different interventions. What is the land use challenges in this particular landscape, and then what is the restoration interventions can be adopted here, and what kind of ecosystem benefits can be achieved if we do this landscape restoration. And this is the map. This shows 8 different interventions which is potential in this region. And so what are the like different your ecosystem services or the areas for like the areas for protection? This shows those kind of your layers. So this can help a number of your achieving the number of SDGs. This can improve the tree cover. It can like produce about 3.75 million person days of employment in this particular landscape only. And it can also help in developing the value chains, the revenue generation, the wage income, and the jobs creation. Yeah. thank you, everyone. This is from my side. And anyone can access this India Restoration Atlas, the indiarestorationatlas.org platform. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Pulkesh. I'm sure we have a lot of questions for you, which we will take in the end after we have finished all the presentations. It's a really wonderful tool of putting data in the hands of people. So with this, I'd like to invite Dr. Pratima Joshi from Shelter Associates. I think she's been one of the forerunners in the civil society to use GIS for bringing in a lot of value to her work. So with this, Dr. Joshi, Pratima ji, I'd like you to start your presentation. Pulkesh ji, can you stop sharing the screen? Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Shabita Kumar. It's a pleasure to be on this. I hope everyone can hear me.
Yes, yes.
And thank you for calling me Dr. Pratima Joshi, but it's a bit misplaced. I'm not a doctorate in anything. But yes, you're right. We did start our geospatial journey almost 2 decades ago. We started in the late 90s because we realized that, data was the missing piece, and spatial data was the missing piece when it comes to anything related to development. And as architects who had started this very young NGO, Shelter Associates, in 1993, we were quick to realize that, we need to sort of start working on this missing piece and see how we can bring data alive. And I think being architects, we wanted to see data spatially. So that was one of the incentives that made us explore, GIS technologies in the late 90s. And since then, this has been really the driving force in just about everything that we have been doing within Shelter Associates. So having said that, I just thought for the viewers, I'll just let them know that Shelter Associates has been looking at certain verticals in the development sectors in which social housing and access to very basic services like water, sanitation, housing is something that we have really focused on. But whatever we have done on the ground has been very much driven by a very data-driven approach and a very spatial data-driven approach. So I would like to say that today, for the purpose of demonstrating how the spatial data becomes actionable on the ground, I thought, let me just highlight our more recent sanitation efforts and, of course, our vaccination of efforts around COVID. But before getting into that, as a quick glimpse of our work, I just want to say that we have been working in Maharashtra, which has been our geographical area of work. We worked in quite a few cities of Maharashtra. We have mapped and surveyed over 3 lakh slum households across slums in several cities of Maharashtra, which are, Pune, Kolhapur, Thane, Navi Mumbai, Pimpri Chinchwad, all the cities that you see there. And because of this data-driven approach, we have been able to impact more than 4 lakh people directly or indirectly with sanitation, and directly we've been able to impact more than 1,20,000 people with a home toilet. And we have provided access to over 8,000 people with a secure tenure. And more recently, we have also started looking at locational ID, which can be, which can be sort of put on Google Maps and allow people to reach the houses of the poor, which otherwise has never been a possibility. So moving on to the next slide. Can we move to the next? Yeah. So what did we do? Right at the outset, we knew that we had to get really granular data on slums before we can even think of what are the missing pieces. So we have used Google Earth as the base map whenever it became available. And we've superimposed all our mapping information on that. Over the years, over the 2 decades, because as technology changed, we also adapted ourselves to the change in technology. And from paper-based surveys, now we're using, Android-based apps for capturing data. And we are using even open source tools like QGIS for in terms of the GIS technology that we're using. We've integrated all this data on QGIS, and spatially we start looking at what are the missing pieces. So there are basically two types of data that we collect. One is infrastructure level data, which is very detailed and which you will see in the next few slides. And one is household level data, which is every slum household in that particular slum is covered with a basic set of questions. So we call it rapid household survey. Can we go to the next, please? Now, when I say infrastructure data, I mean, the drainage networks that exist, all the manholes, all the water stand posts, all the community toilet blocks. What is the status of the community toilet blocks? Because often we all are aware that these are the most poorly maintained, access to sanitation that urban slum dwellers are subject to. Often they don't have a choice but to use very, very poorly maintained toilet blocks. So we've also captured all the data about those toilets, on our apps. And that is reflected in the map also. Can we go to the next one? Now, if you look at this particular slum, you can typically see that there are about 10 community toilet blocks, which you can see, which are in red. Now, we've also, when we capture data at household level, we also ask them, which community toilet block do you use? So we map users to the CTB so that we get to understand what are the differing pressures on the community toilet blocks. So we capture just about everything that you can see. So all manholes, all CTBs, all water stand posts, electric poles, all this data is captured to understand what is the existing infrastructure. Moving to the next slide, you'll find that we also are able to then look at which are the networks which are, which have problems, where maybe you need to change a line, or maybe you need to do a thorough cleaning, or sometimes you need to replace some of the drainage networks because they don't have the adequate carrying capacity. So all this data is then captured, worked around with, and having this kind of information in place, then the municipal corporation also understand where they need to come and intervene. So as I said, when we do all this data, we need to have the confidence of both the government and the communities, because if you don't have both of them on board, if they don't trust your data, there's not much that you can do with it. So when we do data on infrastructure mapping, we actually have the cities validating that data. So when they validate that data, they come to the ground and they actually see the data that we have laid out, and then they check it. And if there are any suggestions and corrections that need to be made, we immediately do that. As you can see, even in this slide, like on the left, you see the municipal commissioner of one of the cities is actually doing a visit to one of the settlement, and he's referring to that map that is showing him a lot of data at that point of time. When we go and talk to the councillors or the elected members, we are always showing them the maps so that there's so much clarity that data brings in, which we start sharing with the government people. We've also been doing wherever possible and wherever cities have shown interest, we're trying to even do a few training sessions to help them understand how they can use spatial data, even in their day-to-day work. And just like we'd like to take the government on board, we also take the communities on board. Because as the next slide will show you, that a lot of community people in the beginning are very apprehensive when you go in and say that, we want to do data. Most of them feel threatened by it. But then slowly, when they understand that this data is actually going to lead to something very concrete on the ground, and it's going to give them a better environment, they also get very involved in that data collection. And we try and encourage a lot of volunteers from within the community to get involved in this process of data collection. When the data is processed, we actually show it to them. So they start understanding what are the missing gaps in their own community. And we find by and large, the young people, are more savvy with even technology. So they are the ones who really get very excited when they see maps coming alive, when they can see their own houses on the map, and they know that, this data is very, very reliable. We use this data even for monitoring our outreach in slum communities. I think the next slide will probably show that. Okay, before that, let me also say that please go back to the earlier slide. So as I said, this is the kind of data that we collect, and this is the kind of involvement that we have from the government as well as the communities. So how did we apply it to our sanitation? So what was very interesting is that when Swachh Bharat Abhiyan was launched, all our data pre-intervention had shown, across 7 cities, that sanitation was the most neglected piece in slums. I mean, we were pleasantly surprised to see in the city of Pune or some of the other cities that over 90% people had water in their homes. Over 90% people had electricity, but less than 28% actually had access to a home toilet. And in most cases, they were all using very dirty community toilet blocks, or where the pressure was very high, where the person to toilet ratio was very high. People were defecating in the open. So just like we do with our other project, we evolved a one home, one toilet model, which had 3, pillars, which are normally the pillars that sort of address every problem that we tackle on the ground. So the first pillar is, of course, creating geospatial data, which gives a lot of transparency and accountability. Once that data is in place, then we use, we mobilize communities, and this data comes in really very handy in mobilizing communities, and I'll show you how in the next few slides. And in the third, you'll also notice that while we bring all the stakeholders together, we also make sure that even financially there is a buy-in from every stakeholder. So our one home, one toilet model was a huge success. We've reached out to over 25,000 families with a home toilet. And all the, we had 3 pieces of funding that happened. We had the government coming in with building in drainage networks wherever the possibilities arose, because that is what happened. Once the data was in place, you knew what were the possibilities. You also knew how many people wanted a toilet. And across cities, without exception, over 75% of community people said that they wanted a toilet at home, which actually busted a myth, a preconceived notion that, the poor have such small houses, they will never prioritize a toilet at home. I think that was the myth that got busted first. And then the government started looking at the possibilities of laying drainage networks within slum. And we find that across cities, a lot of money was invested leveraging this data to start putting drainage networks. We leveraged a lot of corporate body funding to give material for construction at the doorstep of the beneficiary family. And then the families constructed their toilets at their own cost, hiring their own contractors. So it became a very unique cost sharing model. And there were several spin-offs which happened due to this. In the next slide, you'll find that how did it happen so successfully? So what we did was, when we had the spatial data in play, we divided every slum into pockets of 200, 250 households. And each pocket, we had a volunteer from that pocket who was then trained very intensively to run a lot of modules that we have developed on awareness around health, hygiene, menstrual hygiene, solid waste management, because one of the things they had to be told was that even if you have a toilet at home and you might be keeping it very clean, but if you're going to be putting waste into the gutters, it is all going to start working against you. So it was a very holistic sanitation approach that we had adopted. So this way, we also had a whole bunch of volunteers who became very data savvy, and we ensured that we didn't miss out a single house when it came to sending out this very strong messaging using several. We had various modules like games, songs, street plays, jigsaw puzzles, and I mean various mediums of training the people. Let's go to the next one. So if you want to see the measured impact on this, you'll find that, look at this, one of the settlements in Navi Mumbai, Shramik Nagar, where only 2% families had home toilets, and the pressure on community toilets was 1:65. Today, it has completely changed. You have the pressure reducing to 1:10. So for every seat in the community toilet, there are only 10 people, and 86% families have. All those pink houses now have a home toilet. That was a tremendous shift. And we made a lot of citywide impacts also. Let's go to the next slide, please. There was a lot of citywide impact that we made in the city of Kolhapur. Across the city, from 26% home toilets in slums has gone up to almost 65%. And what you can see are pictures of people, with their home toilets. Every house having a different toilet depending on people's taste. They have invested in a lot of other material, finishing material, as you can see. So this is how, we were able to really impact Swachh Bharat Abhiyan through this effort. Can we go to the next one, please? Now, how are the donors being kept abreast of this? Now, what is very interesting is that the donors also get a link so that they know which house in a settlement they have sponsored for a home toilet. So a small fact sheet, comes up at their end when they click on that house. And so this has brought in so much transparency and accountability and trust. And if they feel like going and visit that household even without us, they know how to do it. So I think this will now bring me to, can we go to the next one, please? Please move to the next one. I wanted to say that we have a toolkit that we have uploaded on our website, and it's also on the Swachh Bharat Urban website, where there is one kit which talks about how do you do data. So how do you create geospatial data is something that is there in the toolkit. The one which you see, the first one, creating spatial data. If anybody is interested, I would actually request Dr. Pandey to take a look at it. I'm sure she'll find it very, very interesting. Let's move to the next slide. I also wanted to say that this data is now in the public domain. It's not just on our website, but every city has linked their website to our website wherever we have done slum data. This is the Kolhapur website, where you can see on the homepage, Shelter Associates logo is there. If you click on it, it takes you directly to the webpage of the Kolhapur Municipal Corporation and shows all the slums across the city which we have captured. Let's go to the next one, please. So now this brings me, to how do you now, okay, you have created spatial data, but today all of us are aware that thousands of families living in a slum have only one address. So if you want to particularly visit a family and track or monitor anything, it becomes almost impossible. So we decided to partner with Google, who has been a long-standing partner, and they decided to do plus codes with us, where you actually have alphanumeric locational IDs that are getting generated. And that once it is, the lanes are ingested, which Google has been doing, you can just put that on your Google Maps and you go straight to the house. This has been really pretty wonderful. It's still in its early stages. I really wish it goes far ahead, because a locational ID during COVID, during the vaccine drive, and the pandemic really proved to be very effective. And I want to just show a couple of slides before I, end my presentation. We actually went door to door. So you have at the household level a lot of data, but even within that household, we've been able to dive down and capture every person's data. So by the end of it, everybody in the municipal corporation health department knew. So if you see this map, this is one of the slums in Kolhapur, where all having all members who have taken both the doses, the green ones were only 4 families. Having members completed maybe first, second, none, so the orange ones that you see are partial kind of people who have taken within a family doses. And 54 families who had not taken a single dose are the ones which you see in pink. Now, what was the after? After we shared this data, we ran vaccine camps. You find the green ones really went up tremendously. You had 117 households with every person having taken the first dose. And all members not taken any vaccines has reduced to 6. And this is, of course, ongoing. And if you see this, every house, if the health department needs to reach a specific house where maybe one member is just not taking a vaccine, then they know how to reach that house, because we've given them the plus codes for that house. Can we go to the next one? So this is the way we are trying to see how geospatial data can really be leveraged for just about anything that the government wants to do. It's a fantastic tool, development tool. And I really think the government should push for institutionalizing this kind of data within governments. And so I'll just sum it up saying that it really helps you pinpoint what are the gaps in service delivery. It identifies all the vulnerable families, and it allows you to then plan in phases. There are times when we have done projects in phases, where in phase 1 we just took up houses which had access to a drainage network immediately, and in the second phase we started working with those families where new drainage lines were laid by the government. So budgeting is something that they can do, and it accelerated the implementation very effectively, and it also ensures transparency and accountability across all the stakeholders. And I think this is the efficacy of deploying geospatial technology when it comes to making an impact on the ground. I presume that was the last slide. Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Allow me to stop the video so that there won't be any disturbances during the presentation. Maybe after that I will again switch on the camera. Yeah, so good morning everyone. Today I would like to share our experiences of geospatial technologies in managing the land degradation through watershed, integrated watershed management. So I would like to present a couple of case studies from Western Maharashtra where we have done watershed work, integrated watershed development work in the project villages, and how that has changed the land degradation scenario as well as the land productivity scenarios on ground. Yeah, so just before going to directly to the presentation, I would like to give a few minutes to our organizations, information. So Watershed Organization Trust is established in 1993 and having a vast work and pioneer work in the watershed development in Maharashtra. Currently, we are working in 7 states and we have covered around 61 districts. We have then trained various people from community level, then the government NGOs, the other stakeholders, and also for the international participants as well. At Water, we have these 5 major focusing areas where we would like to enhance the community resilience to climate change by rejuvenating the landscape and ecosystems where they are living. Then improving the agricultural productivity for creating the livelihood opportunities for farmers within the villages itself. Increase the water availability because most of our working area is in the semi-arid region. And last two but not least is the empowering women and their contribution in the decision making of the activities, and strengthen the health and well-being of the communities and their institutions. So these are the 5 major sections where land and water management is at the heart of the each activity. So I would like to take you to the degraded landscape of India. So we have this desertification and land degradation atlas by ISRO, which has shared a grim picture that around 1/3 of India's geographical area is already degraded. And about half of the geographical area is covered by arid and semi-arid regions. Moreover, the recent studies have shown that the aridity over the Indian geography is increasing. And that aridity changes are the primary indicators of land degradation and desertification. And human-induced causes are further accelerating and contributing to the depleting soil nutrients and leading to the degraded lands. The next picture, you can see the degradation indicator with the respect to the SDG 15.3.1, where we have tried to assess the current status of the land degradation, whether it is stable, it is degraded, or still degrading, or it's improving. So there are most of the area now, though we are seeing it's in the stable condition, but it's either already degraded or those which are in good condition, but those are prone to degrade because of the changing aridity and the human interventions. So this is the first case study where we have studied the project activities of our climate change adaptation work in different areas. The brown colors are the villages, those are the project intervention villages, and the gray color are the controlled villages. So in 2 different blocks of Maharashtra, Akole and Sangamner, the geographies are, for Akole it's a hilly area, but it's in the lower catchment, and the Sangamner it's a plateau area and the upper catchment area, and the riverlet area where we have selected the 2 project villages, and there is a 1 control village for each of the geographies. And these are the project villages where we did our climate change adaptation work with integrated watershed development as well as the climate resilient agriculture, promotion of climate resilient agriculture practices. So the objective of this study was to assess the impact of holistic climate change adaptation on the natural resource base of using geographical technologies. So these four parameters we look after. First is the land degradation neutrality, how that has worked with the land use, land cover change, soil organic carbon status, and the land productivity. Here are the findings from this first case study, where you can see that pre-watershed development or the pre-CCA work in 2008-9, there was a higher amount of erosion in some of the project villages, and soil accumulation was less in the other villages, which are at the lower catchment level. And in 2017 and 18, you can see that the area which is in the accumulation zone, which has increased the soil accumulation because of the land treatment and area treatments. However, the area which is in the upper catchment, those were prone for the soil erosion. The soil erosion is slightly reduced in those areas. The next slide is for the LULC changes in those areas. We can see that the project villages have marked very good change in the agricultural land, like the project village Varudi Pathar and the Mahalwadi, which has increased around 65 to 41% of the agriculture area has been increased. Whereas in the control villages, it's just by 1%. If you see the vegetation apart from agriculture, it's 6% and around 2.5% in the project areas. Whereas in the control village, it's the negative -8%. The vegetation has been reduced in that decadal change. The next slide shows the land productivity dynamics. Here we can see that the project areas, which is in gray and dark green, are showing increasing land productivity dynamics, means those lands are reviving due to the interventions. And that percentage is far better and higher than the controlled village. Also in the areas which are stable, the project villages has the higher percentage of land which is in stable. On the other hand, the land stable but stressed, the control village has the higher percent of land, which is, though it is a stable, but it is in a very stressful condition. Then this is the second case study where we did the spatial mapping of soil nutrients and soil test results. So these are the three different areas from three different agroclimatic zones: the Sakri cluster from Dhule, the Bokardhan cluster from Jalna, and the Parne cluster from Ahmedabad. We tested around 1800 to 1900 soil samples in those villages. And these are some of the soil spatial maps for those different soil properties. These soil property maps are very helpful to plan the agricultural activities and nutrient doses and the plot specific recommendations for the farmers in those project areas. So that's why these are the very crucial information for those villages, and based on that we go for the nutrient application as well as the other agricultural planning, and that yielded a very good results. The next one is the role of watershed in soil erosion prevention in soil erosion, where we can see that the pre-watershed scenario and post-watershed scenario in Sakri region, where the soil erosion before watershed treatments, the soil erosion was very high, and post-watershed activities, the soil erosion is reduced drastically. And soil erosion, we have not just reduced the soil erosion, but along with soil, there are the various crucial vital nutrients, those are getting lost. So that we have saved around 1.42 million rupees per year because of saving the eroded soil. And if we would like to replace those nutrients with the conventional chemical practice, then there would be a GHG emission that also we have avoided. And that avoided GHG emission was around 218 tons of CO2 equivalent per year. Then this is the third case study from the digital soil mapping. Around 15 years before, when we did the watershed treatment in the Kumbhavadi, the leftmost area, and the right one. And that shows that the Kumbharwadi region, which is the treated watershed, which has higher soil organic carbon stored in the feed in the soils in different locations, whereas the Vervanti, which is the control watershed, which has a comparatively lesser soil organic carbon sequestered in the geographies. So this shows that how watershed treatment is beneficial for the agricultural productivity as well as the land productivity and sequestering the soil organic carbon. And these are the experiences and the results from our interventions through geospatial technologies. Yeah, thank you.
In visualization of the devolution of forest management authorities to Gram Sabhas and the transfer of rights on NTFPs to the local communities. So, so here in this project, we are basically doing CFR potential estimation, wherein we are trying to study the extent of these CFR claims, and then trying to identify the bottlenecks, the constraints in implementation of CFR, the study of the post CFR claims and how these CFR claims are processed. And then we have a team of researchers who are in the field trying to assess the Gram Sabhas and then the CFR facilitators who are actually implementing this in assessing the requirements, and then how to creating the awareness on how to go about demarcating boundaries or collecting CFR based data. So now we are doing this using a geospatial web-based application. So wherein it's a three-tiered system, wherein we have a Android application that is used by the CFR facilitators and then the ground staff to file claims and demarcate boundaries, which then is uploaded to a backend server, and then that is in turn queried by the client, WebGIS client, for various types of post-processing information, and at the same time verifying the CFR claims. So that is what this overall architecture does, application architecture does. So so what we are doing is basically we are using certain important layers, like say the village layer. So let me just go back to the original slide. So when I said the constraints in implementation of CFR, there are different types of constraints, like say one is the coordination among the different authorities at the ground level, and then the lack of awareness among the local communities, and then the overlapping claims in CFR with respect to the boundaries, and then the due to lack of coordination among, say for example, the revenue department or the forest department, people really don't know what their claims are overlapping on. So with this, with the help of WebGIS application, what we are doing is basically we are using certain important layers like the village layer and then the forest compartment layers from the forest department to overlap them, and then give an idea to the post-processing team as to how to verify these claims, and then how to help the local communities and then the facilitators to correct in case of any conflicting claims, correct those. And there are many cases wherein there are claims from two different villages overlapping on each other, and then they're basically not geographically aware of how these things are spread out, whether in terms of administrative maps or in terms of the forest department geographical context. So those kind of constraints are there. So we are trying to solve this using this web mapping application. So one is using these two layers, and then at the same time providing attribute data for these villages and forest compartments basically helps the backend team or the post-processing team to help these local communities and facilitators in verifying these claims. At the same time, we have provided around so right now this pilot is concentrated around the district of Bastar. So and then we have around some 350 plus cadastral maps which show the village resources laid out, and then basically using this, so using these numbers, using these resource numbers, the Gram Sabhas and then the facilitators can verify those claims better and resolve the conflicts that generally arise with those claims. So if you see here, we have the several tools in this WebGIS application, like the doing the cross-layer geospatial queries, or even reducing the opacity, or measuring the distances, measuring the areas, and that kind of tools. Apart from this, so what really happens is, so whenever there is a claim, lodged, we have a moderation mechanism in the back end, where the post-processing team verifies the claims, and then one is checks for the constraints, and then if the constraints are there, then the claim is sent back to the facilitators, local facilitators, who in turn do the corrections and then upload it back using the Android app that we have developed. So once that is done, and then once the claim is processed, so we have the backend application, server, which then serves the request to the WebGIS client, where it shows which are the claims that are processed and which are the claims which are not processed, and then they're all under based on the moderation, and then the claims which are processed is open to the communities, local communities, so that they know exactly what are their areas of claim, CFR claims. And then this is our front end, the Android app that we use for uploading the CFRR claims. Apart from the geographical context that is attached to the CFR data, this also uploads the claim boundaries, so that one is even the government has records for all of this. Up until now, there were many areas most of these areas maintained a hard copy map, or kind of hand-driven maps, or things like that. But then with the introduction of this, and with this pilot project, we hope to extrapolate this experiment to other areas in Chhattisgarh itself. And then eventually, when there is larger acceptance of this idea, then we are hoping to extrapolate it to other states too. So this is our URL for this application. And then, yeah, you can always get back to us in case of any query you have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Shiva Subramanian. I think it's a fantastic application, especially when you look at, what is it that people can use and to make decisions on the ground, and especially in light of the Forest Rights Act as well. Yeah, so please stay on for questions. Yeah. We now have with us Dr. Monalisa Sen, who is the program coordinator of the biodiversity team at ICLAI. And they have also done a very wonderful project involving the natural asset map of the Nagpur Municipal Corporation. So Monalisa ji, I'd request you to switch on your video, and the session is yours. Shivaji, can you stop sharing the screen?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. Just give me a second. I'll share the screen.
Yeah, that's fine. Perfect.
Yeah. So I'll talk of, one of the applications of GIS, which is basically preparation of natural asset maps, and what is their significance in a city governance structure. ICLAI is basically a global network of cities, and we work with over 1750 cities across the globe in 1,000 plus countries. We have 17 secretariats across the globe, and I come from the South Asia Secretariat, which is headquartered in Delhi. We work on 5 interconnected pathways: low emission development, circular development, nature-based development, resilient development, equitable, and people-centric development. So the topic that I present today falls directly under nature-based development, but it is also interconnected to the other pathways. Like I said, I come from the South Asia office, and as the name suggests, we cater to the entire South Asian region. Coming to GIS and urban biodiversity, where all is it really used as per governance and implications by a city? Certain things like base mass preparations, land suitability analysis, temporal changes in land use, delineation of fragile and sensitive zones with regards to vulnerability, green cover mapping, urban heat island, urban watershed modeling. These are the common areas where cities use maps. Primarily, our natural asset maps come of a big use in all these spheres. And there are other areas also in which cities use. Well, just an example, this is how the fragile areas are denotified. Coming to temporal change mapping, is something called as heat island mapping. This is again something like Bhopal, which we've just picked up. This is land suitability analysis. Again, something I think Bhopal only did this. Depending on various criteria, they then map it and then come out with which are the reasons suitable for what kind of development. This is how basically a GIS thing happens. First, you take the street layer, then the buildings layer, the vegetation layer, and then you get the integrated layer, which gives you the land use land class. If you just stop at the vegetation and the water layer, that is where the natural asset map comes in. So what basically is a natural asset map? This is nothing but a map which showcases all the blue and the green infrastructure. In that sense, I mean the trees, the green vegetation, and the rivers, lakes, water bodies of the city on a GIS platform. And primarily, it helps the city to understand where its assets are and where all they should be planning. And if you do a time series analysis of natural asset maps, which is nothing but you do mapping of the natural assets over a particular time period, say 20 years, 30 years, you can see what is the condition of the extent of the natural areas in a city. We've done this for several cities. I'm just taking you through some natural asset maps. Like this is for Kochi. You see the key, and what it shows us here in the table is what is the extent of each of these land classes. All these, if you see, there are no other classes apart from whatever can be classified as natural that have been put in this. So you don't see any roads or any other buildings, etc. in these land classes. Panaji, this is a mixture. It's not really fully a natural asset map. This is a land use land cover map. You see other things also in it, but if you just screen out the infrastructure ones, you'll just get your land classes, which will fall under natural asset map. Similarly, this is the natural asset map for Gangtok. Coming to Srinagar, all these maps were done at the request of the city because they wanted to know where are their areas which they need to start conserving on priority basis. Coming to another form of a natural asset map is an illustrated natural asset map. This differs from a natural asset map in the sense that a natural asset map is strictly a scientific thing and used by planners, scientists, geographers. An illustrated natural asset map is more of a communication tool, and it connects the people, the tourists, everyone with the biodiversity wealth in the city. So it's nothing. Basically, the natural asset map is converted into an illustrated form, but it still remains on the GIS platform. Like I showed you the Kochi map earlier, that is the natural asset map, which is used for planning. But this is an illustrated natural asset map, which shows about the biodiversity wealth in the city and for the citizens to understand the significance of the biodiversity they have and the ecosystems that they are nurturing. This is the map for Panaji. Each one of them has been done keeping the cultural heritage of the city in mind. This is the Gangtok map. Nagpur map. This again focuses on Nagpur being the tiger capital and orange belt in the country. Coming to another map which we've done for Hyderabad. So these are the various kinds of maps. What cities are doing with these illustrated natural asset maps is they're putting them up in various parks and gardens so that people can understand the kind of urban biodiversity wealth that the city has. Traditionally, for us, biodiversity, the moment we say it signifies things into the forests and rural areas, we don't really connect it to the urban areas. So this is a way to connect people of cities with urban biodiversity. While I'm saying these maps do not get prepared very easily. They need a lot of amount of ground data collection, right from here, where in the GIS-based ones, you have to do data collection and ground truthing, and extensive amount of surveys need to happen for the illustrated natural asset map, wherein we are putting in species also cited and where they were cited. So it takes at least about 6 to 7 months, at least, if not more, to come up with one such map. And we also have certain things of communication material on what are these illustrated natural asset maps and why are they a novel communication tool and important to cities. And overall, this helps to understand SDGs or achieve SDGs 11, 13, 14, and 15, which is sustainable cities, climate action, biodiversity on land, and life underwater. I think that's okay. Another implication of these maps is something called the City Biodiversity Index. This is basically the only index which is accepted by the Convention on Biological Diversity on various understanding where cities are with regard to biodiversity governance. So if you see various parameters, there are several of them, like proportion of natural areas, connectivity measures, carbon and cooling effect, regulation of water. All these need the natural asset map to come in from where we do such calculations. So that's how the natural asset maps become even more essential. If you people are aware, the smart cities now have something called as a climate smart city assessment framework, for which they have to compete each year. And the City Biodiversity Index forms an integral part of that. So all cities now really need to do up the City Biodiversity Index. So natural asset maps become even further important.
So I'll just talk today about application of GIS and remote sensing in natural resource management. BIF is a very big organization. All of you are aware of it. I'll not go in the profile of BIF. Just I'll tell very basic things how we are using Google Earth and GIS and remote sensing in our various natural resource management projects. So we are basically working in watershed. Then we are working in climate proofing, climate change adaptation projects, and some of the CSR projects which are focused on water and natural resources. So we are using very basic things which can be used for various, which can be applied across the natural resource management team. So I have divided my presentation accordingly. So I'll discuss about application of geotagging in NRM, then application of GIS and remote sensing in NRM, and what is processed. So how is data collected and what is processed through the data, and how we are using it. So I'll just go a little bit into the basics. So what does geotagging means? Now we all know that geotagging is adding geographical information. So this information or this data, it consists of latitude, longitude, altitude, distance, place, name, and at what time. So all this data, all this data is captured through a geotag. Okay, so we are using all this data for further processing. So now, how GPS location, GPS data is used. So we know that there are 5 applications which has been mentioned. That first, whenever there is a GPS location taken, so we get the idea about the latitude, the longitude, the elevation, and the ground truthing. So where it is. So identifying location is one of the application which can be used. Then locating places. So we use this GPS data for locating places also. So if there are a number of villages, or there are offices, or there are hotels, hospitals, schools, various centers. So now BIF is working along in various states and we have a number of cattle breeding centers in our locations. So we use this GIS and remote sensing and geotagging for locating places. So where are our centers? Where are the villages? What is the profiling of that villages? We also use for locating structures. So we all know that there are some existing natural resources in the villages. So there are existing percolation tanks, there are existing wells, there are existing check dams, there are other nala bunds, farm ponds. So all this GIS and GPS data is used for locating structures also. So, and then after locating the structures, specifying the locations also. So this is used for locating sites for new activities, the specifying data. So if there is a check dam, so we can use this geotag information for specifying very specific information about the farmer. So what is the name of the farmer? What is the name of the structure? What was the date of the construction? What is the date of completion? So what is the project name, mobile number of a specific location or a specific structure? And this can be used for further processing. Yeah, I think someone's this is unmuted, so it is causing disturbance. Yeah, okay. So now how we are using geotagging. So specifically, this can be used by various NGOs also. So this can be used for proposal development, for DPR preparation, for mapping and further processing, and for many, majorly for monitoring and evaluation. So, so we'll go in deep one by one how we are using this. So for proposal development, yeah, for proposal development, you can see that giving information and location maps. So a lot of, so we use Google Earth Pro for getting this information. So as you can see a figure over here, so we can add place marks for the villages and we can delineate boundaries using Google Earth so that we can get the delineated map. So very specifying very particular information about the location can be done by using Google Earth. Secondly, if we have, we also use these applications for location of new proposed site. So suppose we use Google Earth. So there is a percolation tank over here in this village. So we use to specify the proposed site. So if you want to give the location about the proposed site in our proposals, then we can use Google Earth. We can use this information and we can present this location in our proposals so that we can very nicely tell the sponsor also that this is the percolation dam which needs desiltation and this is the way, this is where we are proposing structures to be repaired. So this is one of the application, and then giving information for location of structures to be repaired or existing location. So as you can see over here, by using Google Earth, so this is a one percolation tank in one of the village. So we can actually understand from Google Earth that how much where desiltation is required. So as you can see over here in this figure, that green color, blue color is marked where desiltation is required. So we can actually get the measurements by using Google Earth also. So what is the length, what is the height, what is the length and what is the height. So this can be analyzed by using Google Earth, and then we can put the measurements of the locations, and that this can be used for further processing. So this is one of the application. Then we can also present data and we can take decisions for implementation of the projects also. Suppose there is a very small example that there are a number of villages and we have to take a decision that which village is to be selected first and which location or which site needs to be repaired at the first. So all this data, whichever we have collected by using geotagging, this can be superimposed on Google Earth, and then this information can be this information can be used for understanding where is the location and which needs to be given the priority. So implementation decisions also are taken by using this remote sensing and GIS techniques. And we can also take decisions for feasibility of the site. So if you want to construct a check dam, so where should be a check dam constructed? How much is the catchment area? Then how much is the backwater? How much field is coming under this area? So all these technical decisions are also taken by using Google Earth. So this is one of the application for which till now we needed to go to the ground and we needed to analyze all the situation. But now due to this Google Earth and geotagging, all this can be analyzed and ground truthing can be done by just one visit. So this is the application which has been emerged due to the various things. Yeah. So for DPR preparation, as you can see that we use in all the projects, in specifically all natural resource management projects, we need to submit a DPR, or we need to prepare a DPR, detailed project report, for our project. So all the applications related to geospatial technologies can be used for preparation of the DPR, because earlier it required almost 6 months for doing this, for collecting all the information, then analyzing it, and then putting it for further for DPR preparation. But due to the use of these geospatial technologies, we can do this within a period of 1 month to 2 months. So we get all this information: location, altitude. We can do area calculations. We can do measurements of various structures. Then we can do site selection, and it gives us a aerial view of our proposed location also. So we also get an idea about the existing structures. Then existing structures can be mapped, proposed structures can be mapped, and we can delineate the boundaries of our village, of our watershed, by using Google Earth. We also get an historical timeline for any project site. So if we want to get an information of 10 years or back, or 20 years or back, that information is also being analyzed, or that information is available on Google Earth, and we can use that for preparation of DPR. And data inventory can be also created by using these applications. So these are some of the photographs which have been prepared. Then how is GIS used? So GIS is used for creating various layers. So we use QGIS and ArcGIS, so whichever is possible. And then various layers are generated by using GIS. So we can generate layers of existing wells. Where are the farm ponds, check dams, soil sample plots, horticulture plots, pump locations, cattle development centers, water bodies, demonstration plots, work completed. So we can generate various layers, and we can put these layers on in GIS, and then a map can be created which can be used for further analysis. So we can understand what are the planned works and what are the achievements. So this is a very good tool for presenting our data to various things, various agencies. And we can classify data according to requirements also. So if we want to present plots with low organic carbon, or we want to present pumps with low HP, a separate layer can be prepared by using GIS and all the geotagging information, and this can be analyzed further. And we can take decisions for remedial measures. So if there is a plot, if there are plots with low organic carbon, we can focus on those plots only, and then we can take decisions that if there is low organic carbon in these plots, then what remedial measures should be taken. So all these decisions are being taken by using these geospatial tools. And for processing of remote sensing and GIS applications, georeferencing is one of the application in which we can use. Then we calculate vegetation index also. So it is NDVI we calculate, and impact analysis also is done by using remote sensing and GIS applications. So these are various maps. So as you can see here, this is a map of asset mapping. So there are various maps that can be generated by using GIS. So there is a resource map, slope map, contour map, drainage line maps, land use maps, soil maps, and area treatment maps. So all these maps can be generated by using GIS technology. So this is one of the example of geotagging. So all these locations have been geotagged. So this one is about one of the cluster in Yavatma at Modi cluster, where soil samples have been taken. So this and these are provided with spatial data also. So if we click to any point, we can get all the data of that particular sample also. And these are the locations of the wells. So all this information can be coded by using GIS. These are some of the maps that are being generated by using GIS. So this is land use, and this is land cover map, and this is treatment map. Then for monitoring and evaluation, specifically remote sensing and Google Earth has been we are using remote sensing and Google Earth. So as you can see is that it is a very great tool for transparency and for monitoring. So as you can see that these are the images of 2 years. So this is 2009 and this is 2017. So when we initiated projects in one of the micro watershed in Tamil Nadu, so this was the location of 2009. And then when we did the plantation, what was the condition after many years? So in 2017, we can see here very clearly that there has been establishment of horticulture plants. So this is a very good tool for analyzing what work has been done and what is its impact and what is the survival rates also. So this is one of the tools used for monitoring. Then you can also see over here, this is used for monitoring of farm ponds also. So in 2009, there was not a single farm pond. So in 2013, there is one farm pond that has been constructed, and this has been very clearly visible in Google Earth and remote sensing applications. In 2014, there is one farm pond constructed, and in 2015 you can see a number of farm ponds with water also. So this is one of the applications which is used for monitoring. So we can actually monitor ground truth whether farm ponds have been constructed or no, or how many farm ponds are constructed. So this is one of the applications. So in 2009, this is one of the patch where work was not done. And in 2015, you can see that this is a plot in which actually agriculture plot has been developed. So we can get a very good information by just looking at the pictures also. And these are coded data. So there is a check dam constructed over here, and all the spatial information has been given to this check dam over here. So this is how it is being used for monitoring. So we can see over here also that how plantation has been monitored. So there was nothing in 2009, and in 2015 there has been a patch where plantation has been done rigorously. So this is how it has been analyzed by using GIS. And these are some of the photographs I'll be just showing that how we are using for monitoring. So as you can see over here, so you can see this patch where no work has been done related to soil and water conservation. So this is a figure of 2006. You can see there is no work done related to watershed. And in 2010, you can see that this has been covered with CCT. So this is a very good tool. Just by looking at the Google Earth images, we can analyze whether works had been done or not. So this is about in 2007, these are the locations where there are no check dams constructed, and in after some years, there are 2 check dams constructed over here, and it has been filled with water also. So this can be a very good tool for monitoring. So we can see over there. This is the image of plantation. This is the image of plantation. So in 2002, there was no plantation over here, and you can see the impact of the plantation that has been done, or that has been done earlier. And we also use a remote sensing for calculating the moisture index and calculating for calculating the moisture index. So these are 2 clusters in Katpur in Yavatmal district. So we can see over here that in March 2000, this is an image of March 2018, and this is an image of March 2022. We can clearly get sentinel data and landside and sentinel images from the sources that are available. Remote sensing satellite images we can get, and by using the satellite images, we can actually calculate the moisture index. So in as you can see over here, the mean value of moisture index was minus 0.092, which has been decreased to minus 0.037. So the moisture index has been increased. As you can see in this picture also, that there are patches of blue color which are very less, but in 2022 the blue color has been increased. That means the moisture index has been increased. So this is very good tool for analyzing the impact also. And we also calculate the vegetation index. So this is this is the images for 2018 and 2022. So firstly, at the start of the project, the value of vegetation index was 0.17, and then it increased to 0.27. So at a glance, we get the impact of our works by using remote sensing and GIS. Yeah, so this was from my side. So how we are using for monitoring and evaluation and for impact analysis. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Sneha ji. I would just request all the participants to switch on their videos if it's possible, and then we can go back to the question that we were, discussing about. How do the end users, the very last end users, look at this technology? Yeah, Shivaji, we could start with you.
Yeah, so thank you, madam. So basically, in our case, we were dealing with local rural communities and forest communities on one side, and then the local authorities who are responsible and facilitating the CFRR claims. So initially, we did for almost a month or two, we did extensive surveys on what is it that they are the current way of handling things, and then what are the shortcomings that they are facing, and then we did a prototype, and then we did several awareness workshops, trainer workshops, awareness workshops, and then for these different stakeholders. And then eventually we took all their feedbacks. Generally, the level of the type of awareness and then the level of awareness for all these different groups are at different levels. So you need to deal them separately. You need to deal with all these issues separately, and then eventually you need to make them aware of the responsibilities and then the kind of the expectations that they have from these applications. So, and then that is what really helps in fine tuning your application. That is what really helps in eventually making them accept your application, or really making the application really useful for their purpose. So this is how we handled it. So I'm sure there will be other better suggestions. I think you are muted, madam.
One is, about, handling it, but one is about how the forest dweller, whose land is in questions, looks at this technology. Are there any stories that you have about that?
Yes, actually. So we found that actually, so there were really remote communities where people had no access to smartphones or things like that. So for the first few months, we had to put our field trainers or even the local volunteers to help with them and make them aware like how this application can be used. So because the CFRR claims can be filed only with the help of the local authorities who arrange for the facilitators. Generally, but also the community needs to know what exactly is being filed. So that really helped us, and then we were able to tell them that okay, I mean this application, what the claims that are being filed. So you can actually have a preview of that in the application. So the community person would also know what exactly is being filed on his behalf, and then the local authority would also be comfortable in showing what exactly is being uploaded to the server. So that was one experience that we had.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Madhavji, do you have any stories of end user reactions? I think we can't hear you. I don't know. Yeah. No, you're not audible. Maybe the volume is low or something.
Hello.
I think, yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, so actually for the end users, as we see, that means the work which we did for the addressing the line dynamics for the productivity, and also the soil testing which we did at a large scale in different places. So for the end users as a farmer, there are different stakeholders, I would say, of those technologies, where we at Water, we do use this technology for planning the watershed activities on ground. On the other hand, for farmers' side, when we give the soil testing results to them with the soil health card and what crops they are growing and how much the nutrients they have to use, and the same has been linked with one of our mobile application called Farm Precise. It's freely available on the mobile Google Play Store, where a farmer can access directly a precise dose for his crop. By having his soil nutrient status, he can calculate how much NPK he has to apply. Before that, there is a general tendency of farmers to just go in the bags. And we know that how much excessive chemical fertilizers they are using, that causes the higher cost for them. There is a huge subsidy involved from the government side. And the last thing is, the main thing is the emission taking place from those chemical fertilizers. So with this, we could have, we have really narrowed down the fertilizer consumption and the precise application of those. And also at the same time, we promote with the organic, integrated organic cultivation. So where they can reduce at least 50% of their chemical doses with the organic nutrients. And thereby they reduce their cost of cultivation as well as the emissions from their fields. And there is also a paper based on this, which is recently published in Environmental Challenges Journal, based on the same study. So I would say this is the tool, like the soil testing results, and it's coupled with the farm precise mobile application that says the ground users they can do as a ground.
So there is a kind of digital awareness about this technology and the value that it brings.
Yeah, same. Even the farm precise mobile application has the geotagging of their farm, so that we can narrow down the crop specific advisories to them. Right. So we are integrating this geospatial technology with the mobile application, and we are seeing how we can give the improved agro advisories to the individual farmers. Because at the moment we have this district level agro advisory system from the IMD and all. Now it's came down to the block level, but still we need to go to the more detail and granular level where farmers can get more use of these technology services.
Thank you. Dr. Das, would you have any stories about end user case studies?
Yeah, we have stories, but slightly not the direct ground level people, but we are closely working with the government of Madhya Pradesh. And as I told in my presentation that Madhya Pradesh has a huge potential for wide scale and mosaic restoration. So we are working in a pilot cluster of 13 villages in Siddhi district of Madhya Pradesh. And here we are doing some interventions on the ground. Those are related to tree, soil, agriculture, and also the livestock. And also we currently we are working, we have recently started these interventions last year with our field partner ASA, Action for Social Advancement. So they are the implementing agency, they are supporting us on the ground in this implementation activities. And we have also developed a mobile application, this is not yet functional, this is under the testing stage. So we wanted to use the local people's knowledge, the citizen science, basically, the citizen science based approach. So we'll be engaging local people to understand what is happening in their surrounding area, and they will be helping us in collecting data. So in this way, we'll be creating more public awareness, how to do these interventions, how to monitor these interventions, and as well as we'll be using satellite data for monitoring the different interventions. And our end product will be your interventions is one component. The other component is improving the climate resilience of the local people. So whatever interventions we are doing on the ground related to water, agriculture, or forest, how all these interventions are leading to a climate resilience to the local people. And also we are also engaging this your value chain development related to agriculture, horticulture, forestry. So all, and also this capacity building. So all these things will help us improving the resilience of this local community or local people towards the climate change impact.
Thank you very much. I think we've had a very interesting session since morning, looking at case users, across sectors, domains, and cutting across socioeconomic groups as well. Before I hand over the floor to Dr. Shubha Pandey, I just have sort of two suggestions, because like we said, we are looking at content building for the UNWGIC. And one of the points that Dr. Shubha Pandey said, is looking at upscaling. So if you could, maybe also showcase or add in this point about upscaling, so that, other countries basically in the African or the other continents could also use, that would be great. And the second point is also about localizing the SDG indicators, because I think the work that you're doing is so fantastic that it really contributes, towards the indicators. But very often there's not a lot of awareness about how local projects done, can help in localizing the SDG indicators and contributing to the national indicators. So I think building this kind of a thing in would also help the local governments, to report when they do their reporting to the Niti Aayog. So that's one. And I think it's a fantastic also example of SDG 17. All of you are working with multiple stakeholders, local governments, local communities. So I think this is also something that needs to be showcased, that SDGs, partnerships for the SDGs. So thank you very much from my side. And I'd like to hand it over to Dr. Shubha Pandey. Shubhaji?
Thank you, Dr. Shamita ji. And I feel very great. And first of all, on behalf of NGP DST, let me congratulate all the presenters for the wonderful work they are doing. So that's indeed very good example, doing it at the base level, bottom up approach. So that's